Hello and welcome to this lecture. And in this lecture, we are going to learn how we can add some sort of data to our database. So in the previous lecture, we have actually created the database and the database tables using this model right here. And now let's learn the different ways in which we can add some sort of data to that table. So in order to add data over here, we are actually going to make use of Python shell. So right now, if you go to the terminal, as you can see, the server is up and running. And if you want to add some data to the database, you need to open up Python shell. So first of all, we are actually going to stop the server by pressing in Ctrl+C. And now once the server is stopped, now in order to actually use the Python shell, you simply go ahead and type in python3 manage.py shell. So now once you go ahead and hit enter, now you will be into the interactive Python shell which Django actually provides so that you can go ahead and interact with the database model. Now let's assume you want to add some data to the item table. So right now we already know that from this particular class we have created a table which is called as item. So in order to interact with this particular item table, we first need to go ahead and import item in here. So now we go ahead and import item. So here what we do is that we want to import item from models which is actually present in food. So this item is actually a model which is present in the models, and this models is actually present in the food app right over here. So in order to import that, we type in from food.models, we import the model which is item because we actually want to add an item. Now once we go ahead and hit enter, as you can see, this line of code will be executed and now we have item imported. Now in order to see what kind of data is currently stored into the item table, you simply go ahead and type in item.objects.all, and that's actually going to list out all the items which is stored in the item table. Now these items are actually stored in a database, but with Django you can actually access all the rows of the item table in form of objects, and that's why we are able to type this command in. And now when you go ahead and hit enter, as you can see, you get a query set which is an empty query set, which means that currently there is no item at all into this particular database or into this particular table which is item. Now once we know how to access those items, now we need to learn how to actually add them. So as I earlier mentioned, whatever things you want to enter into the item table, they can be treated as objects. So whenever you want to create some items, you can also go ahead and do that by using objects. So here we will create an object. Let's name that object as A, and this is going to be an object of the type item. So this is similar to what we do when we create an object of a particular class. We go ahead, name that object as something, then we specify the name of the class which states that this object belongs to that class, and now we can set the attributes as well. So now the attributes which we have are the item name, description and price. So we can set those attributes over here. So here I can type in item underscore name equals, let's say the first food item is going to be pizza, then simply give a comma, specify the second attribute which is item description. Let's say that's going to be something like let's say cheesy pizza. And now let's finally set the item price. So the item price is going to be, let's say, $20. Okay, so now once we are done with this, simply hit enter and this object will now be created. But this object won't be yet stored to the database. Now in order to store it to the database, you can simply go ahead and type in a.save and hit enter, and now this object is now stored into the database. Now if you want to get the unique ID of this particular object, you can simply type in a.id, and as you can see, you get the value as 1, which means that the ID of this item pizza is 1. Now another way to get an ID is by typing in a.pk. So if you type in a.pk, you're also going to get 1, and pk here stands for primary key. So if you already have learned databases and tables, then you already might know what a primary key is. But if you don't know, then a primary key is nothing but it's an attribute which uniquely defines a particular row. So in this case, the primary key is going to uniquely define each and every food item which we are going to add in there. Okay, so now once we know how to do that, let's go ahead and create another food item over here. So I can type in b equals, we'll again type in item, and now let's set the attributes as item underscore name equals, let's say burger. Let's see, the item description is going to be something like cheesy burger. Let's see, the item price is equal to $10. And you'll notice that we are not using the quotation marks for this field right here because this is an integer field, while these fields are actually character fields. Okay, so now once we have that, let's simply go ahead, hit enter, and now let's also save that. So that's going to be b.save, hit enter, and now if you do b.id or b.pk, now as you can see, the ID of that is going to be 2. That is because this is going to be the second item which we have added to the items table. Now, in order to see what all items are actually stored into this item class, you can simply go ahead and again type in item.objects.all, and now if you go ahead and hit enter, as you can see, now you'll notice that we have 2 items stored over here, but still we don't get their names. So for example, we are expected to get the name of the items over here like pizza and burger, but instead it shows the string representation of those objects as item object 1 and item object 2. So how exactly can we fix that? So to fix that, we need to define the string representation of this particular model over here in the models.py file. So here we need to explicitly mention that okay, we do have some items or objects stored here, and whenever we want to retrieve those objects, we need to display them in a specific manner. So we do that by using the str function or str method. So we can type in def _str, and then we'll pass in self here, and then here we actually want to return the item name. So we'll type in return self.item name, and once we go ahead and do that, what this string function does is that it formats the output and it's going to return anything which we have mentioned over here. So now when we go ahead and query the query set, we are going to get the item name instead of getting these item object 1 and item object 2 over here. So now you cannot directly go ahead and query them again, because if you query them again, you're going to get the same thing. But now you need to go ahead, exit the Python shell, restart the shell again, import the items again, and then only you can get the actual result. So let's go ahead and do that. So in order to exit the Python shell, you type in exit, hit enter, and now as you can see, you are out of the Python shell. And now in order to again start it back up, you type in python 3 manage.py shell. And now we again need to go through the same process. That is, the first thing which you need to do here is that you need to import items. So from food.models import item, and now you can do item.objects.all. And now once you go ahead and hit enter, as you can see in the query set, you have 2 items, which is pizza and burger. And this was made possible only because we have used this string method, which basically tells Django that this particular object needs to have this sort of representation. That is, we need to display the item name over there. So that means we have successfully added and retrieved data from database over here by using Python shell. But as you might have noticed that this method of adding data to the database is quite tedious and quite time consuming. And for the same reason, Django actually provides us with an admin panel which easily allows us to add, retrieve, edit and delete data. So what we will do in the upcoming lecture is that we will learn what is the Django admin. We'll learn how to create the admin user for this Django site so that we can easily add data without having to do all these things right here. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.